Positions, yings and yangs and Donheimers. April 15, 2025, 7:30 a.m. We are in session. Okay, everybody a chance to look at the agenda? Any changes they want to make or updates or? Nobody? Jack is out today because he's having a medical surgery. I'll tune into him and see how he's doing later and make sure he's good. And John is out today, and we have Hayden. How do you, Stengard? Stensgaard, plural. Stensgaard, got it. Well, thanks, Hayden, for coming in.
Yeah, no problem. I will try my best to answer questions, and anything I can will be reverted back to John.
I don't think we'll have a problem. Okay, so approval of agenda, I need a ying on that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda. Approval of minutes, EDA Treasurer's report, and summary of commercial industrial inquiries. Hayden, before we jump on this one, just in case our treasurer is incapacitated for a bit.
Sure.
I think at this point we should probably do a temporary treasurer, and we should all agree upon who it's going to be for now. Can we do that?
You can certainly, someone can make a motion to appoint an alternate.
Just in case?
Sure.
Because it sounds like it's pretty serious.
Sure.
And these are things that you do usually at the end of the year or when you do your bylaws, but because of the medical emergency. Okay.
Yeah, I think to the extent of alternates, I believe that Sean is the vice president of the EDA for filling in for you as well. So I don't think that we did anything for secretary, as the city staff was the secretary and the treasurer is Jack. So if someone wants to make a motion to create an alternate, that's fine.
Well, I'd like to note is that the city council guys, they're here every 2 to 4 years. I don't know if it should be, unless you think that's a thing, or should we give it to the next in command if he wants to do it? If you don't, then it would fall to Dave. What's your guys' thoughts?
I don't think it should be a council member. I think it should be one of the community members.
Yeah.
I agree.
Agree, Scott?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to back up, or do you want Dave to back up?
I'll be back up.
Okay. So we need a motion for that?
Make a motion that one be interim treasurer
And how long is this for?
until
Jack gets back or gets better. If there's an if there.
And then
If you don't want to do it, I get it.
And then at the beginning of the year, if you want to do that at the start of the year, just in case something like this happens again, you can certainly do that. But that would be the time where it would probably come up again for question.
Well, he does have technical seniority over Dave, so I would.
I'll be happy to do it.
Okay. Motion, please.
I'll make a motion.
Scott made the motion.
I
I
made
just
it.
need a second.
Oh, Scott, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And you can't report today, so you can't, there's nothing really to tell you. Approval of minutes, treasury report, interim. Summary of commercial industrial inquiries. That's a Hayden thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I can certainly answer questions for you on that.
I saw the list in here. It was 3C.
Yes.
Yep.
Very, very nice.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, page 9?
3, it says 3C.
3C.
at the top.
And I'll just note, you can see in the table that some of those are duplicates, just multiple points of contact for certain projects.
It's towards the middle.
And if you see the acronym RFI on there, that would be a Minnesota deed request for information that is sent out to the mass of cities within a specific area that is a company is showing interest. They are a long process. Sometimes they take 6 months to a year to get to a point where they identify a site, but those initial points of contact are the items that we reach out for. And if we've got a site that's available for them, we certainly provide information to deed for them to share with the company that's interested in a site.
So there's 3C, following summaries of contacts between non-residential development business. Okay, date category, new construction. And of course, the jobs and investment, and sometimes even the name is anonymous, which is okay.
Yeah.
But this is how many we have in that amount of time?
Yeah,
Yep.
pretty
Some of those are
surprised.
duplicates on there. Like you can see, there's multiple contacts for Skinell, which was a previous warehouse and distribution center that was approved in 2022. They've reached out to the city and expressed interest in kind of restarting that process, and their TIF certification expired, so they would have to go through that process again through the city council if the city council chose to do so. And the planning commission has recommended that they come back through preliminary plat, which is consistent with the code, as it's been quite some time since their final plat was approved, and that that time frame between approval and them having to record the final plat has lapsed, so they would have to restart the process.
So if they tickle us once, and then suddenly they want to do it halfway through the month, just on the sheet.
Correct.
Well, that seems like a lot of traffic, doesn't it?
We do get a lot of inquiries here in town.
What were we missing before we asked this question? We missed a whole lot of information, but to Dave's point.
Oh, in terms of EDA knowledge on inquiries and things like that?
Right.
Sure, yeah.
Well, good grab, Dave.
Well, and I have a related question. I don't know if it's getting ahead of myself, but we're specifically talking about the triangle, and that's been the impetus for all of this. However, this really shows something at a much higher level than that.
Correct.
But in regards to the triangle, have we, anybody spent any time taking a look at that property and what it could support? Obviously, it's not going to support a 125,000 square foot, 5 acres times 42 is 200.
We're going to cover this at 8 o'clock,
Okay,
so throw it
Never
back
mind.
a little bit, because this is all going to be,
that's fine.
I know where you're going with it.
It just,
What will it support? I got it.
yeah, that's all, so I'll hold off. But still, I would agree with you that in this whole thing, even if there's duplicates, I would have thought half a list like this
Right.
for March. And certainly, it shows that there is a lot of interest in Dayton. I mean,
Which we didn't see until now.
yes, and
To the EDA's perspective, the unfortunate part is the majority of them, as you can see, are interested in warehouse and distribution facilities.
Well, that gives us a meniscus of what we're looking
Sure.
at too.
Yep,
So
certainly.
that's intel for us.
or, obviously it gives the city council zoning thoughts, with Dayton Parkway coming in, it's good to have information.
Do you get these reports, Council?
No,
No.
Would that help you guys?
I think
Tire
it's useful.
kickers?
I mean, if it develops, we're gonna hear about it, so.
Well, this is kind of a win. Okay, well then,
Not inconsistent with other communities I work for, as having kind of an updated status list of inquiries and things like that, so.
In regards to this, I don't know, and maybe this isn't related, but did anyone read the article about Egan in the paper? And about their city council and the Economic Development Authority and their ability to fill in Thomas Reuters and the Delta Airlines, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and what the city's doing, to develop, to bring industrial base to Egan. It was quite interesting. Now, obviously, they have other advantages, but
hopefully we don't have too many goats and sheep that we want to bring into Dayton. We're almost to that point, but not today.
No, but I think Egan's a great example, of course, and I'm a little biased. I lived there for 30 years.
Okay,
And when I moved to Egan, it had 13,000 for a population. Now it's what, 68 or something in that range. So the time I lived there was the time that whole city really developed out. And I thought they did a lot of really smart things in terms of keeping an industrial corridor and really promoting, that side of it, because that really helped on the tax side for the residents there to have that industrial base. And they've continued to build off of that. Of course, you get some momentum. I mean, the Vikings moving there was a big deal, but even before that, it was a couple of different names, but the Sperry plant was there, and Northwest Airlines was there for a long time.
one of the things I did notice in that article was that the city of Egan was working with Ryan companies on planning, not what would you build, but overall planning of, and Ryan certainly might have certainly has an idea of where things are going in the commercial industrial sectors. So,
It'll also be an 8 o'clock conversation.
okay.
Way ahead of you on that. Any more conversation about summary commercial industrial? 3B, 3C? I think it's a great gig. We should continue that. I for one, think that's a very awesome tool. Okay, Hayden, is there anybody online?
There is nobody online.
There's nobody in session, so we'll skip open forum.
President Hunter, we will need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
Oh, let's do that.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll skip number 4. Old business. Do we have anything to update us on these things? Hayden?
Let me see here. A couple of things that I think John wanted me to mention related to the flower pots is I read the minutes from last month, and that there was some interest from the EDA members of sponsoring again a flower pot, and then a couple of members were interested in waiting to hear if the public wanted to reach out first, and if there were any left over, you guys would take on the remainder. And John had mentioned that we would reach out to the people who have sponsored last year to see if they wanted to redo their sponsorship, so that is what we will do.
So do we have anyone that's claimed a pot for this year yet?
Not at this time, no. At least not to my knowledge. John might have different information, but I haven't heard anything specific.
I don't recall, was that in the communicator? I don't recall.
In the January one?
In just the recent one that we just put out, I mean, we put one out about 2-3 weeks ago.
I didn't see it.
I don't know
There,
that it was in there.
there was one that was put out in January, and then I think that there is one going out in May.
Okay. We should get a blurb in there.
Yep, absolutely.
You want to put that in there?
Yeah. we should go in there.
We would like to guide you guys to put that in there.
Yep.
Plus, did we do our brochure for the EDA going out to the people yet?
That went out in the January communicator. It had a whole page of its own.
Okay, and there's
Related
no,
to
there's no
economic-
flower pot thing in that either.
Nope, that was specific to the programs that you guys have, like the loan fund and things for businesses to reach out if they were ever interested, so. It was kind of a whole page dedicated to people understanding what the EDA's role is within the city, and kind of what the useful tools that you guys have if people choose to use them.
So we were talking about a brochure and it went out in the communicator. When did we switch that?
I don't know if we switched
Well,
it.
we didn't switch.
We were talking about a brochure like an EDM, EDDM. So we were talking.
Oh, to mail out.
Yeah, a mailer
Well,
versus
we-
a versus.
We did
a-
talk about that,
Well,
but the cost was too, I mean,
I
it
mean,
would have been
it's-
15, whatever it was.
It's about $4,000 to do that.
Well, I thought the insert in itself was, in my opinion, was a separate EDA thing. So, I mean, you could literally pull it out, so.
Well, and the information that was included in the communicator would have been the exact same that would have been in the brochure that we would have sent out, just that page of information of what the EDA has and their tools.
Okay. So you saw it and you thought it was separate?
Yeah, I thought, wow, this is good. Now, if I think we should continue to promote the EDA in the communicator. And certainly not saying a separate page, but at some point, this is what your EDA is doing, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, if you look at,
Quarterly update, something?
yeah, if you look at, and I don't know if we brought this up last meeting, but Perm, Minnesota. There's a great big thing on Perm, and the Tuffy Nelson, who built the Tuffy's dog food plant in Perm. He built a Wiley's licorice, that's where that comes from. And all about the residents of Perm bringing back to the community, so it's that community stayed very lively because of.
So we take a ride in the communicator, which is way less, or do we get to do that on a regular basis?
You're piggybacking on.
Yep.
There's no expense for the EDA.
And we,
Correct. The Community and Economic Development is dedicated a page generally for every communicator, so we can certainly, whether that's providing residential updates or economic development updates, we can work with it within that page.
nice. Okay, well then, we're a loose leaflet type thing, or is it actually the page?
It'd be a full page within the communicator itself.
Okay.
And I'll also note too that the Champlin Dayton guide was recently updated. I don't know when that's specifically going to come out, but that highlights some of the economic development progress that's been going on in Dayton, including states manufacturing, getting the MND grants, like the JCF and the MIF grant, and that they be moving into the Cubes building. So there are highlights in there as well.
So maybe at this point, us as a group should designate one of us to be a communicator.
Sure. Whatever I can do.
If there's something specific that you want to highlight, certainly reach out to John or myself, and we can
Okay.
work on getting that information in there.
And what, do you have a deadline then?
I can get you the deadline for the May one. I think it's coming up next week or the week after.
Okay.
Do we have to vote on this to get him to be the guy?
No,
No.
Okay. Would you take that role on?
Yeah, I'll take the role.
So to make sure that we're in the limelight of the public and know how to be very transparent.
Yeah.
Dave, if you, we can get after Kelsey and have her do some sort of a little picture thing with the pots and try to get the public involved in it.
Sure.
yeah, that deadline is May 9th. So,
Okay.
What are we going to call you? Like a communications director thing guy?
How about Dave?
Oh, Dave.
Yes, sir.
They're going to say, which Dave?
Which Dave Anderson?
Yeah, which Dave Anderson? There's only 400 in this city. Okay, well then, thanks for taking it.
Sure.
We'll let you run with it.
And is it possible maybe to meet with you and John at some point during the week?
sure.
Okay.
All right, let's put that on there as Dave. I see new business got transferred to old business of last month, so they talked about that, and it's been transferred over. If I believe Hayden and Vice Chair checked it. So I think we're there on that one. Okay.
I was going to ask, the Dayton Legislature bill status update. Has there been any updates, or is it still in progress?
Once those types of appropriations bills gets introduced, more often than not, they are hardly ever approved or passed separately from an omnibus bill. So all of that information, if there is money appropriated to the city, it would be in one of those omnibus bills that have been drafted. I've been looking through the current omnibus bills that were originally introduced, whether that was in March or some of them were introduced last week as well, like the transportation one and the state and local government one. There's very minimal dollars that have been included initially for city appropriations. And if anything changes, as likely that language is going to change quite a bit until it gets to the point of them making a decision on them. We'll certainly keep you up to date on whether that information or those bills that were introduced get included in that.
My conversation as of Monday is all three of ours for EDA are still in effect. That's what I understand. John only submitted the one, but I went back and made the other two happen, one through the DNR and the other one through, Jeff, that's John.
Yeah, I think, if I recall, I think there was 4 or 5 bills that were included specific to Dayton.
Okay.
And like I said, that language is going to change as they meet in committee and get language introduced and included in there for new cities and. But
Yeah, we went to schools, we went to DNR, and then we went to the main
Sure.
ask. But we're asking for a cash give, not a. But I did check with him. He will be in the shop tomorrow for an oil change. I think that's tomorrow, isn't it? And we can, if anybody wants to go and visit with him, that's the time to visit. Were you open?
I'm gonna try to make it.
Okay. So, heads up, we have 3 in play that have not been canceled yet for EDA.
Sure.
Good.
The transportation omnibus bill at this point only includes appropriations for 3 cities right now, and I think the major project that was included was, I'm blanking on the city right now, but it was a major road construction project on Highway 55. So that's kind of where it's at right now, and we'll continue to monitor them.
Cool. New business. Staff updates, verbal?
I don't have any staff updates. I think the majority of all of the updates that I had for you were in old business.
Okay. And the ones we had for updates, we've already talked about in the old business ourselves. So we can blow through that one. Let's see, it is 5 minutes to 8. We could probably close now unless anybody wants to add something. Scott?
No.
Ron?
I'm good.
You good? Okay, pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D, .05 subsection 3C, 3, a closed session shall be conducted to develop and/or consider offers or counteroffers for the purchase of a sale of real estate. Property included is the 1800 PID number 31-120-22-13-0010. Can he shut that camera off?
Yes, just to be safe, because I'm not sure off the top of my head, I would take a motion in a second to enter into closed session.
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
I
All opposed? That'd be the first time we did that, isn't it? We've been out of closed session for about 2 minutes now, so we're back into normal session. Thought I did that. Okay.
That's what I would guess. I mean, I don't, but I think so.
Well, just a question, because obviously, to me, it doesn't look like blue means anything other than the printer decided to print it blue. That, just from a layman's
Yeah, I'm not seeing a
standpoint. I don't
connection there
see,
either.
I see negatives and parentheses, I understand that, and numbers on the balance from 3/31/24, they're not in blue. And yet there are expenditures in the 3/31/24 that are in black, but they're in blue for the 25. That, again, just something I noticed.
Yeah, if you'd like, I can run and grab Zach for that, but my guess is that would be the total amount of money that's come in and gone in between that balance time, which would be 3/31/24 and 3/31/25. It's not very clear and concise on what is expenses and what is revenues, other than following the column on the left.
Maybe it's just blue sky.
It could be.
I don't know, but it caught my eye, so.
Are you satisfied with what you got there? Your question?
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm not demanding it get changed to anything, just curious why, and yes.
Yeah.
Acting treasurer, do you see anything going on there that you got questions on?
Accounts payable, liabilities. What is that in regards to?
That I'll have to get Zach for, and I could certainly run and grab him if
I
you'd
was
like.
curious.
I'm guessing that if you take 2947.80 and add in the 652.50 of property tax payments, that'll add up to $3,054.70. I don't know that, but I'm guessing. Property tax payments of 652.50. That doesn't add up because it's 30 cents in there.
Property tax payments.
Oh.
A city pays property tax?
On certain properties, I'm not sure which ones specifically.
Well, it's got to be related to us, so it's probably the Lent piece.
That's what it's
Could be, if there were delinquencies or anything like that, maybe that would be something that was taken care of in the
If you want
purchase.
further, I would get Zach on that. I mean, he's the one that probably put this together. I mean, he was in on it, I'm sure.
I will grab him right now.
It doesn't have.
On the Lent property, I do just want to make a
30
note.
cents. Yeah.
You guys had mentioned about last week or last month having some concept ideas of what can be, some conceptual ideas of what could be placed on that property when it becomes vacant. Stantec is currently working on creating a couple of concepts for review, and John wanted me to mention to you that it is likely that you'll see those in May.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll run and grab Zach. There he is. He's right here.
I seen him close the door. We forgot to close doors when we did that.
Zach did it.
Good morning, Zach. Thank you for joining us in today's EDA.
Good morning, EDA
We
Chair and
appreciate
members of
you
EDA.
taking the time to come in.
Thank you. What can I help with?
There's a question on how the accounting page turned up on 3B.
Sure.
What's
Yep.
the blue mean?
I don't know why it's blue. There isn't a difference in changes or anything. It's just maybe to show and highlight the fact that that's this year's numbers and not last year's numbers, but they should be black. There's no difference in blue or black numbers. It's a good catch, but I don't know why it popped up as blue, because
Well, I'm okay with it. It just
Yeah.
it separates from what we had to what we're current. I mean,
yeah, so basically what we looked at is pull the trial balance from last year at this time and then this year at this time. So we just try to compare apples to apples from last year to this year and then say, okay, here's where we're at. And the main difference is that obviously we've had some expenses this year that we purchased some property and had some legal fees and such, but again, just in total, nothing major has changed besides the purchase of property is probably the main thing.
The property tax number of 652 something.
Yep.
This property had taxes on it?
Yep, we're due.
Okay.
So we didn't purchase the property till January, we didn't close on it until January something. And so as soon as January 2nd rolls around, you owe taxes for the whole year. So in order to close on the property, you have to pay all the taxes off before it goes tax exempt. So it will be tax exempt in 2026, but because we didn't purchase the property until January, I can't remember what the closing date was, 10th or something like that, the property taxes are due January 2nd. So if you can't close on New Year's Day, obviously, it's a holiday. So as soon as January 2nd happens, you have to pay all the taxes for the next year. Yeah. So that happens on a property. If you personally were to buy a property too, it'd be the same thing. You have to pay all the taxes off for that full year when you buy the property. That's why on some of those statements, it's like, oh, this is part of the taxes, this is part of this. What we elected to do is instead of having it on that closing statement, we just said, send us the tax bill separately, we'll just pay it separately. That's why it's broken up.
So it is tax-free?
It's
After
tax
next
free
year.
moving forward
Will be.
in 26, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't, the city didn't own it.
Yeah, no, I get
before
that.
then, so.
But I was surprised it was taxed at all. Like, I thought cities didn't have to pay tax on that, but.
Well, the city didn't own it.
As of January 2nd, the city did not own it, so that means it's not tax exempt. Now, it has to be for a public purpose. The EDA would be a public purpose because it's for economic development purposes. That would be the purpose of the property. If the city were to own it, it would have to be named a park or some sort of facility for it to be considered tax exempt property. So we as a city do own property in town that we have to pay taxes on still because it's not for a city public purpose.
So triangle-wise, we should
Yep.
get that off the books and on our books as soon as possible, so we don't have to pay tax on it.
Yeah, so if you could do it this year, it would be before January 2nd of next year. You wouldn't have to pay taxes on it next year, and we could file for exemption for next year. But if you do it anytime after January 2nd next year, you then have to pay taxes for that year, and then
Well, that's kind of a goal.
Yeah, that's good to know. So we
Yep.
got, about 9 months?
8 months,
Take 8-9 months to take care of this.
7.5 really.
7.5, yeah, that's right, 8.
Which I don't see that being a problem.
Shouldn't be.
Okay, I'm not okay with not paying tax on it. Hell, yeah, it's a big piece, especially in that area.
so
Is that under liabilities,
Yes.
accounts payable?
yep.
The amount of $3,054.74?
Yep.
What's that in regards to?
So how the books work and how the accounting works for the city is when a check is cut, it goes into accounts payable as the credit, and then debits expenditures. So those $3,000 of accounts payable you see there are actually included in those expenditures in the bottom area. And then as soon as that check is cashed by the person that we sent it to, it takes it out of accounts payable and hits cash. So it debits, then accounts payable, and then credits cash. So what you're seeing in cash right now, you should take the cash number, subtract out the $3,000 for the accounts payable. That will be technically the full book balance of cash we have today. So how the system works is just hits accounts payable, then expenditures, and then expenditures are all there. You can see every one of them. And then when that person cashes the check, it comes out of accounts payable and then hits cash. So,
Tracking it.
yep. So it technically, the cash is like 524, 126. Or
Just debits.
That 3,000 is already on in
It-
that summary.
It's in those expenditures, yep, in that summary and the below, but it's not included in cash. So the cash is 527. There's $3,000 of accounts payable. Technically, if you net those two together, because we sent out a check, they will cash it eventually. That's the hope, at least. So that means that technically you have 524 for cash left on hand. So it shows 527 and then $3,000 of accounts payable. If you net those two together, that's the actual physical cash we have left to spend. Does that make sense? It's just how the accounting
It does.
works in the
Thank you.
system. So
Didn't tell
it's,
you
all
what
the
it's for.
expenditures are there. It's just, we
Yeah.
send out checks and sometimes they take forever to, some people send out checks for 3-4 months. So,
Well, the reason I was asking is because I didn't see that expense under expenditures.
oh yeah, because it's included in, so it'll just credit one account, accounts payable, and then it could be debiting professional services or property tax payments or whatever code it is. It could be multiple of those codes in the expenditures column. But that means what you're seeing on the bottom part, the 154 for total expenditures, that's all your expenditures you have in total.
Okay.
It's not going to add 3,000 to that. Those $3,000 have already been added to that 154 number.
Any other questions for Zach?
Perfect.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Zach, for
Yeah,
joining
thank you.
us today.
Thanks.
All right, we're gonna wrap this up, but before we bounce, I'd like to, Hayden, can we get a card for Jack? We gotta recognize his, there's something we can do as a group to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. If you'd like, I'm sure that I can make a run out to grab something, and if you want to stop in, I can send an email and let you guys know that the card's here at the city for
You guys all right with that?
you guys
Yeah,
to sign.
I think that's good.
I mean, I think we should recognize the 8 years he's put in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions before we pull a pin?
I just had one question. I'm looking at the screen. This didn't come up during the old business.
Right. Right.
But, area of lead property above the floodplain. Do we know how much area is there? How many square feet? And is it an island?
Well, for reference, that garage that is on that screen is a 30 by 24. This area here, I don't have the exact number on this right now, but this area is a 30 by 24.
So you're talking about 700 square feet?
Kinda
But
goes
what we
down
don't
and
know
goes
is how
out.
much more is actually buildable. I mean, there might be another 10 or 20 or feet each way. I mean, I don't know that number.
Well, there are mitigation. There is mitigation available, but I think from City Engineer Jason Quisberg had mentioned to us that if you want to take more area of this land out of the floodplain, it has to be from soil that is on the property itself already. So that's kind of the one mitigation process that we could try and look at to see if we can get more area of the property out of the floodplain.
So we could dig a harbor?
We could try and do that, I'm sure. The other part is there are ways that you can build within the floodplain, but it's more of a matter of cost when it comes to that, because there's a lot of floodproofing that's required.
Mississippi Crossings did it.
Correct. So,
And do we have we still have a general consensus of what we want this piece of property to be, or we've talked about that in the past? Have we changed that since then? Well, we wanted to cover that today too. Place to eat, restaurant, brewery.
Well, I think, I've spent since the last meeting thinking about this. And, the riverfront is certainly a good draw, but in theory, it's only good for May, June, July, August, September,
Or the what do you call it, the wet path, the water path, whatever they call that.
The water trail.
Water trail.
Water trail.
Because that's one of our bonds asks now.
Right, I understand that. However, it's iced out.
It's about
from
the same time frame.
About the same time frame. You're not gonna see canoers.
You can't canoe in there at that time of year?
Well, you can, but don't fall in.
I don't go when it's cold. There's other sports for that.
You don't even snowmobile when it's cold, man.
I get that.
Should bought a four-wheeler and a snowmobile.
So, I think that has to be put into consideration.
Okay.
With that is certainly the waterfront is, again, a very nice addition, but what could support that business, the other 2/3 of the
And
time?
we've all heard Scott's numbers on what it takes to run that every day, so we listened. How do we make that work? I mean, just as a general, is this the feeling we all want to talk about?
Well, I think 2 parts. One, we figure out how we can get the most buildable area we can, and then we market it for sale and see what is brought to the table as far as inquires and what they're proposing to put there.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I don't know if you agree, but we got to figure out is there a market for this property and what do they want to do with it?
I know the cart is in front of the horse here, I get it.
Yeah.
But if we have a general motion,
I think the first thing I'll do is find out how big a building, what will it support?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because if we're going to put this thing up for sale, we're going to have to disclose that to some degree.
Yeah.
Here's how big of a building you can put there.
okay.
Yeah. I mean, I just as a side comment, I've looked at Zillow at lake properties, and in the lake property for that it says flood risk, and some of it, eight out of 10, and then it would tell you, and then there's actually a state site that shows all the floodplain, so it's very interesting. So,
Which will be truth in advertising thing for us, I get it. But the root cause is, or the root feeling here is place to eat? How about we just put it as place to eat for now?
Yeah, if you get a little cafe or, yeah.
Okay. You guys agree with that?
That might be your
Well,
best case
it would-
scenario.
what would that be zoned at? A restaurant or a bar?
P3.
That's R1?
This area would be general mixed use in
Yeah,
the Old Village District, so it'd be, if the correlating zoning district would be GMU 3.
Okay.
Wasn't everything that was on the main road GMU 3 from front to Old Town, all through Old Town?
I think.
At least on the county road, everything on that's adjacent to the county road is. I'm
Yeah.
not sure about this specific area, whether this is still RO because it's residential, but I've got the map pulled up here.
And will it extend if the properties are combined and it go mix the L and if that guy doesn't want to sell? Does it extend down to the docks?
So 3 of the 4 lots are, the 3 lots to the east are mixed use right now, and the one to the west is RO. So that would just be just kind of an added step to the process that would already be.
Run your mouse so I can see what you're doing there.
I can pull it up.
Oops.
And to enhance the buildable area, you cannot bring outside dirt in, huh?
That's from my understanding, and I can certainly double check on that, but I think that
Outside
was,
Outside dirt.
Dirt? Oh, really?
Yeah, it can only
That
come
would
from like.
surprise me, though. That actually would surprise me, because, I mean, they build roads over swamps.
Yeah.
right.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's-
with proper permitting from the DNR
Yeah.
for roadways, and I'm sure that could be a conversation we can have internally, so.
Because that would help. 700 is not very much.
No.
You're not gonna get much for that.
it's a shed.
No. So yeah, we definitely got to figure out how to get a larger buildable area. Look into, can we haul and fill? Can we regrade what's there? Move some dirt around? And a bigger question is going to be, how much do we have to raise it to get it out of the floodplain? Are we talking
Yeah.
1 foot or are we talking 6 feet? 1 foot's going to be way easier to get to than if we have to raise it 6 feet.
There's gonna be setback ordinances too.
Did you show us that piece yet?
Yeah, this is as far as I can zoom in, but this is the properties here.
So the brown is what? General mixed use?
Residential Old Village,
Okay, and then the 3 are,
the general mixed use district.
does it change the one below it and that goes all the way through water? One, the other one we bought? Yeah.
The one below it would just have to go through a rezoning process for the general mixed use if it's going to be
So your
developed.
GMU all around this guy, this residential.
That would essentially, if you have a cafe there or something like that, all of these properties would be developed at the same time, so they would be the same zoning because you probably utilize a portion of this area closer as parking or whatever, one of those types of uses that doesn't require a structure that can be in the floodplain. So obviously to your point, Sean, what you're looking for is kind of probably up in this area where there already is land out of the floodplain. How can you increase that area?
Right.
And I will say too, I'll just go over to actually I'll show you on here, but this area about halfway through this property, and this is just GIS, educated guesses on the GIS maps, is existing floodway, where that is your ultimate limitation on there is no building of structures within the floodway, but there is some mitigation processes that we can look into for the 100-year floodplain.
And if we look at that, are there any impervious surface restrictions on that? In other words, if you put a building in the parking lot and you have nothing else, can you just let it drain into the river?
Let's see.
Oh, God, no, I doubt it. As far as
Like a road.
stormwater runoff,
Yeah.
I mean, I doubt that.
I mean, the boat landing is sort of that way.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, it's all impervious surface
Yeah.
dang there.
This is something we want to get AIG on?
I think you need to find out what can you do first.
Who do we find out what we can do first? Is that what we tell
Yeah.
staff to do?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I guess we're asking that as staff to go and see Whiskey Tango Foxtrot we're gonna do there and how. So we should have that for our next meeting. Let's put that on our next meeting.
How can we increase the square footage? Or
Is that enough time for you guys?
Well, what are the rules and regulations
Right.
attached to that as well?
Yeah.
Because if our ask doesn't come through, then we gotta have a plan B and we gotta keep moving on it.
Right.
Okay, well then we're asking.
Yep, that's, we will, start working on, getting answers for you to that, and, you know, if there are mitigation things that the EDA can do, that's probably something that would, at least from my recommendation, would be something that, maybe this EDA could look into doing before marketing or showing that there is more area out of the floodplain. Again, it's a matter of process, but, that's up to the EDA, so we'll certainly bring back, some answers to those questions.
Anybody wanna add something else for next week or next month? Put a fork in it? Okay. Let's see, it is 8:35, 8:40. Session. We gotta do a motion, don't we? Motion to adjourn? Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
EDA is done.